Hi everyone, I am Sarah Wilson and I'm an Australian author and podcaster and explorer of wild ideas. I actually lived on the road. I currently live in Bondi Beach in Australia, but I lived on the road for about 10 years out of one backpack, traveling the world to explore a bunch of wild ideas. And I produced a number of books in that time, and my latest one, this One Wild and Precious Life, will be coming out in Spanish in 2023. But look, I guess as we approach Christmas and the new year, there's been a number of things I've been thinking about in and around, I suppose, this sense that I think many of us feel around the world that we're not quite living life right. We're not living to the principles that we know to be true spiritually and emotionally and at a visceral, physical level. And I'm just wondering, what that's all about. There's this separation that's been going on, a separation from the natural world. There's the climate crisis, there's political fragmentation, there's all kinds of big issues that are affecting us. And I think many of us feel we're just not living in alignment. We're not living, our best lives, our best wild and precious lives on this beautiful planet. We're consuming too much. We're too distracted. We're on our phones. We're arguing on social media, and it just doesn't feel right. And it's interesting. I explore this in my latest book, this One Wild and Precious Life, that in many ways we've forgotten how to love this one wild and precious life. We've forgotten how to connect with nature, to be in nature. And what's really interesting, I think, is that when we love something, we do everything to fight for it. We'll do everything to save it. So if you think of a mother, her child has been run over by a car, and she will often have this incredible capacity. We hear these stories of a small 45, 50 kilo woman being able to lift a car off their small child and save them. When we love something hard, we will save it. We'll do everything to save it. And so this is something that I think we need to learn to do again with nature, with this beautiful planet that we live on. And one of the things that I do explore in my book and I explore in my own life there's two things. The first is to do what I call soul nerding. And soul nerding is this process where you go and read about other people who have lived these big, wild and precious lives, who have asked the same deep questions that we all ask. And wonderfully, the people who worry about these things, who care and ask these questions, often turn out to be authors who write wonderful books on the matter. And, there's wonderful authors and poets and musicians who have explored these things. And I think when we read their works, we're reminded of what matters. And we also feel less alone in our fight, in our caring. So soul nerding is a really important one. And it's something I think that we can all do at this time of year as we go home to join family and to take some rest over Christmas. The other one is to hike, to walk in nature. And it's something that I have done for years and years. And in this latest book, I actually hike around the world in the footsteps of famous poets and philosophers to explore many of the ideas that I put forward in the book. When we hike, an incredible thing happens. There's about 44,000 studies that have been done on why hiking works, why it settles us, and why it connects us to what matters spiritually. And I think one of my favorite studies is this idea of fractals. Fractals is the patterns, the repeated patterns that we see in our retinas. And we also see them repeated in nature. We see them in petals of flowers. We see them in tree trunks. We see them in the tidal pools, repeated patterns. And when our eyes connect with that, there's this congruency, there's this sense that, wow, we are one, we are the same as nature. And it produces a congruency in our brains that brings about this beautiful sense of connection, this connection to meaning. I think the other one that I find really interesting is that walking goes at the same pace as discerning thought, as deep thinking, as deep and useful and helpful thinking. And so when we walk in nature, that's enhanced because there's this sense of awe, there's this sense of height and this sense that we are insignificant, in the bigger scheme of things, which brings about a real sense of belonging once again. So just walking in nature, hiking, is one of the best solutions for reconnecting with what matters. And I suppose this Christmas season, particularly as we enter into a new year after a very difficult year, I think that there are two practices that we can take part in. They're free, they cost nothing, they're easy to do, we all have access to it. Soul Nerd and hike. Anyway, I hope to see everybody out there in Spain next year when my book launches. Happy Christmas.